Hi, everybody. Welcome to my Reinventing Hannah virtual lunch party. I'm really excited that you guys are all here. We're going to start in a few minutes. I just want to give people a chance to get here. But in the meantime, while I'm getting started, what I'd like to do is invite everybody to say in the chat where they're from and whether or not they've read the book already so that I can get more of an idea of who's here. um, I'm super excited. We're going to be having a reading from the book. We're going to be having a Q&A, and we're definitely going to be having a lot of fun tonight. So welcome, and I'm just going to wait a few minutes to see who else is here, and then I will be starting the party itself. And I'm going to be starting probably by talking a little bit about the book. Oh, my cat is joining us too. Great. I'm talking a little bit about the book. Talking about why I wrote the book. I'm going to be showing you the trailer. I'll be doing a reading, and we will be doing some Q&A. So definitely, um, be definitely I'll be with you in just a couple of minutes. So enjoy. Okay, great. So it seems like we have a range of people, everyone from upstate New York through Southern California. Awesome. I'm really glad to see so many people here. I just want to talk a little bit about why I wrote this book and why I'm so excited to bring it to all of you and how important it is to me. It's been taking me about a year and a half to write Reinventing Hannah, and I'll go into this more details in the Q&A, but it's a story that's very close to my heart for a number of reasons. I'm excited because it's really a story about transformation, which, as everyone who knows me knows, is what I'm all about. I'm here to help inspire people, encourage people, empower people, and I will, and I'll be going back more into that tonight. And with, specifically with Reinventing Hannah. Hannah is pretty much who I would have been if I had not been transgender. So it was a story that meant a lot to me. And of course, as the blurb says, Hannah is a sexual assault survivor. And so that aspect of the story is something that I really want to work with. I was really tired of the way the media tends to treat people with sexual assault, and not take the issue seriously. And I wanted to write a serious story that was also empowering and also helpful and impactful to people. So I think that was important. I just need to send a link real quick to somebody who's trying to get in, and then after that, I will be telling you a little bit more, and then we will get to watching the book trailer. Or actually, yeah, yeah, so, yeah, so like I said, Reinventing Hannah is really, really close to my heart. Can't wait to celebrate with you guys. And I can't wait for you guys to meet Hannah. I'm trying to think of other things to tell you about her, but let me see. It's about 8:05. I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer, and then we will do some more talking. So I will be right back. Let me show you guys the trailer, and then I will be back to discuss it a little bit before we do the reading. All right, so that was the trailer for Reinventing Hannah. And I'm really proud of this. I'm really excited about this. As you can see from the trailer, it is definitely Hannah's story um, her from being a shy, quiet girl who everyone called Mouse, her friends call her Mouse, to being a bold advocate, who definitely she wants to stand up for herself. She wants to stand up for other people, and along the way, she has a hard time changing for a number of reasons that we can get into. And really, what I wanted to do with this is I wanted the story to be about how how hard it is to change and why it's worth it, and overcoming all of the obstacles, especially for people who are sexual assault survivors. But I also think pretty much for anybody who's trying to make major changes in their life, it can be difficult because people, both friends and non-friends, tend to be like, who are you, go back to the way you were, that kind of thing. And I think it's especially difficult for teenagers as well. So um definitely, I'm excited about that. And like I said, later on we'll have more of a Q&A, so we'll get to talk about it a little bit more. But I do want to read to you from the book, and some of you may be familiar with this chapter, some of you may not. Obviously, if you haven't read the book, you're not familiar with it at all. But this is this particular chapter I chose for the reading because I felt that it really encompassed the whole theme of the book. And this is this is the 19th chapter, just about in the middle of the book, and it's a scene in which Hannah has gone with Brad, the guy she likes, to the mall, and she's trying on clothes and trying to figure out her new identity, and also trying to figure out if she wants to date this guy, if she wants to take that risk after what happened to her. So, without further ado, this is chapter 19 of Reinventing Hannah, A Whole New Look. After lunch, Hannah let Brad put his arm around her while they checked an electronic directory display in the center of the mall. He suggested that they check out Time Warp Clothing, a vintage store he'd always wanted to try. Hannah didn't have a better idea, so she agreed. Time Warp Clothing turned out to be a small store sandwiched between Bookworm, Hannah's favorite small bookstore, and some store that was playing super loud music. Hannah had passed by a million times before without it bothering her, but today it made her think of the loud music at Jake's party, and she hurried past it as fast as she could. The music in Time Warp was much more to Hannah's liking. It was classic rock, and right now it was John Lennon's Watching the Wheels. There were racks of clothing toward the back, and at the front there were all sorts of accessories, mostly jewelry, but also hats, belts, and purses. "How do you think I'd look with these?" Brad asked, picking up a pair of thick orange suspenders. "Amazing," Hannah said, smiling slightly. "You play with those. I'm going to go look and see if they have any jeans that don't have holes in weird places." Brad's jaw tightened. Hannah thought he might argue with her, but he just said, "Cool. I'll be right here when you're done, unless you want to show anything off for me before you decide." "Maybe." Hannah's heart pounded, and she couldn't decide if she wanted that or not. "Be back soon." Hannah went over to the clothing rack and flipped through pairs of jeans. Most of them didn't look that different from what she had on, even though they were supposed to be vintage. Her chest felt heavy. She wanted something completely different from anything she'd ever worn before. "Can I help you?" a saleswoman said, coming up behind her. Hannah flinched, not liking being surprised like that. "Oh," she said, pushing her hair behind her ear. "Yeah, I wanted some jeans that aren't as tight as what I've got on." She lowered her voice. "I'm tired of boys staring at my butt all day long." The saleswoman laughed. "It's going to take more than new clothes to change that. Some guys are pigs. Get used to it." She looked Hannah up and down. "You want to go full vintage? I think you'd rock the flower child look." She explained that girls in the 1960s used to wear flowers in their hair and loose clothing to show how free-spirited they were, and showed Hannah a rack full of long-sleeved blouses with puffy sleeves and flowered patterns on them. "What about jeans?" Hannah asked, irritated that this woman was trying to sell her a whole new wardrobe when that wasn't what she come in here for. "Bell-bottoms are on this rack, though if you ask me, you do well with some wraparound skirts, too." Hannah thanked the saleslady, who nodded and walked off. She flipped through clothes. None of this was anything like what she usually wore, but she had to admit she kind of liked it, except that some of the jeans were torn at the bottom on purpose, which she thought was ugly. Hannah stared at a pair of jeans. It was dark blue, or had been before it had been washed one too many times, and there were peace symbols and flowers sewn around the waist, almost like a belt you couldn't take off. It had big pockets and another flower sewn across the bottom half of the right leg. Hannah giggled to herself. What would Molly say if she came to school on Monday wearing that? No, she couldn't. Nathan and the other bullies would have a field day, and she already was getting too much unwanted attention. Hannah flipped past the pair of jeans, then back to it. This was exactly what she wanted. She looked over her shoulder to see what Brad was doing, letting her breath out slowly when she saw he hadn't got bored enough to wander off. She beckoned him over. "Look at these," she said. "Ridiculous, right?" Brad shrugged. "One-of-a-kind jeans for my one-of-a-kind girl." Hannah turned away so he wouldn't see her blush. "I was hoping you'd talk me out of them because I'm this close to trying these on." "Sorry, but you might as well know now. I'm a bad influence." Brad's eyes sparkled. "I say go for it." "They're probably going to be the wrong size anyway," Hannah said, but she took the jeans off the rack. "Maybe I'll get a new blouse to go with it." She went over to the rack that the saleslady had called peasant blouses and picked up a white blouse that had black flowers painted on one shoulder. "This one looks okay." "Don't go crazy now," Brad said, his eyes still sparkling. "Oh, stop," Hannah said, smiling. She draped the blouse over one arm and went to go find the saleslady. There was a rack of skirts behind her, and she stared at it. She wasn't really into skirts, but the brightly colored patterns caught her eye. "The saleslady thought I'd look good in a wraparound skirt," she said. "You'd look good in anything," Brad said. Hannah's cheeks got hot again. She stared down at the clothes she was holding, trying to understand why she suddenly felt like she needed to get the hell out of here before something terrible happened. I'll try this one." She grabbed a cream-colored skirt off the rack and hurried to find the saleslady. The dressing room turned out to be a single-person room that the saleslady had to unlock with a key. Hannah was glad. Back in Florida, Grandma used to take her to this clothing store where the dressing room was like the girls' locker room and gym, with nothing in it but a big bench where you sat to get changed, and no walls or curtains to hide your body from everyone else. If the dressing room here was like that, she would have decided to forget the whole thing. The entire dressing room was made of mirrors, or at least it seemed that way as Hannah took off her sweater so she could try on the blouse. She hadn't really looked at her body since that terrible morning when she discovered her breasts were full of bruises and marks she didn't remember getting. But now there was no escaping it because of all the stupid mirrors, and for sorry, I lost my place. And for a blouse that was supposed to be loose and comfortable, there was an awful lot of buttons to open. She got it open as fast as she could and put the blouse on, then closed all the buttons. As soon as that was done, she let herself look in one of the mirrors, really look. She looked amazing. The blouse wasn't big at all. In fact, it fit her figure perfectly. The buttons were stylish and went halfway up her torso, and there was a black embroidered flower pattern around the borders of the whole thing, which was white, and which contrasted perfectly with the dark blue jeans she had on. The only thing she didn't like was that it didn't go up all the way. The button stopped halfway up and made sort of a V of open space around her neck, and if she looked closely, she could see cleavage, even though the blouse itself helped her chest look flat. She wondered if that was allowed in school. The last thing she needed was to get sent home to change when everyone already thought she was a slut. "I don't care," she told herself, and reached for her new jeans to try them on so she could laugh at how ridiculous they looked and forget how scared she was to wear the blouse. But the jeans weren't ridiculous at all. They were comfortable, and even though the giant flower across the right leg looked kind of silly, she liked it. The black flowers on her blouse popped more because of the pink ones on her jeans, and she couldn't stop looking at herself. It was a perfect outfit. In fact, it was the kind of thing she wanted to wear to school from now on. Yet at the same time, the idea of wearing it anywhere made her nervous, and looking at herself in the mirror made her hear in her head how Nathan and some other boys jeered at her in the halls and called her Slut Hannah. Stop it, she told herself. Stop caring what idiots like Nathan have to say. She wished she could be a whole new person, one who didn't give a fuck what anyone thought and wore what she wanted and went out with Brad for real without being afraid when there was nothing to be afraid of. Why can't I be? Hannah glared at herself in the mirror. Her heart was pounding, and she felt so lightheaded she had to sit down on the bench where she'd thrown her own clothes so she could try these on. She hugged herself tightly, feeling like a baby on top of feeling like a coward, because a little thing like wearing a shirt she looked good in scared her so much. After a minute, she was able to let her breath out slowly and get up. She turned and looked at herself in the mirror, not letting herself look away until she took in everything. She had these big gray eyes that everyone said were gorgeous, but the rest of her face looked tired, and her ponytail was way too tight. Besides, the saleslady said that girls who wore clothes like these wore their hair down. She yanked her hair tie out and let her hair fall around her shoulders. It hurt a little from how hard she pulled it, but she didn't care. She put the hair tie on her wrist like a bracelet and ran her fingers through her hair to get rid of the shape of the ponytail. Then she looked at herself in the mirror again. She stuffed her hands into her jeans pocket like she was hiding them, and she slouched over a little. The only reason she was holding her head up high was she couldn't see herself in the mirror if she looked at the floor. No, that wouldn't do. That was the old Hannah, the girl whose friends called her Mouse and who walked around slumped over like she was trying to make sure nobody could see her. This new girl, the one who wore clothes like this, didn't do that. She stood straight and tall and was not afraid of anyone's eyes on hers. She made herself straighten up and practiced walking with her head up instead of down, her body tall instead of half folded over. The saleslady knocked on the door. Everything going all right in there, hon? Hannah opened it slightly. Sorry, she said, even though there's nothing to be sorry for. I got lost looking at myself in the mirror. I'm not surprised, the saleslady said. I knew this look would be perfect for you. Hannah pressed her arms over her chest, suddenly feeling exposed. I'm not sure. Maybe it's too much for school. She swallowed hard. But I want to take these anyway. Good choice, the saleslady said. Would you like me to bring you a few more blouses so you can see what you like best? That would be great, thanks. Hannah's mouth was too dry to say more, and she hoped she wasn't being rude. But not too many. I don't want my friend to get bored waiting for me. Oh, he's fine, the saleslady said lightly. He's having a great time with the accessories, but I'm sure you don't want to be away from him for too long. Be right back. The saleslady left Hannah to sink back onto the bench in her dressing room and argue with herself about Brad. It felt natural to call him her boyfriend, and knew Hannah would talk about him like that because the truth was, that's what she wanted since the day he transferred into her 8th grade English class and sat behind her, annoying her by putting his feet on the tray underneath her seat. But Mouse was still in there somewhere, she guessed, because she still wasn't sure about dating him. And anyway, even though it was obvious Brad wanted this to be a date, he never said that meant he wanted to be her boyfriend. Knock, knock, Brad said, interrupting her thoughts. He was standing at the half-open door. 2 more blouses and 2 more pairs of jeans were draped over his arm as if he didn't know what a hanger was for. Hannah flinched automatically. Oh, hey, she said, hugging herself. I wasn't expecting, not that I don't want you here. The saleslady gave me a couple of things for you, Brad said, handing her the clothes. But I think she just wanted me to see how amazing you look and what you got on. Hannah's cheeks got hot. Thanks, she mumbled, looking away. Then she made herself look him in the eye instead. I won't be too long, I promise. It's cool, Brad said. Long as you let me take you on the carousel afterward, you can take as long as you want. Besides, I'm amusing myself looking for the perfect necklace to buy you. He looked away from her. If that's okay, I mean. It's cool, Brad said. Sorry. More than okay, Hannah said. Her heart pounded in her ears as she brushed Brad's fingers with her own. We don't have to pretend anymore. I mean, unless you want to, but it's okay if you want to call it a date. Brad's eyes widened. Hell yeah, he said. He leaned toward her, and Hannah froze, afraid he might try to kiss her and not sure whether she wanted him to or not. Brad backed up. Sorry, he said. I should have known you don't want to put on a show for the security cameras. It's okay, Hannah said. She pushed her hair behind her ear. I better try these on before they kick me out of the dressing room. Right, Brad said, and I better line up that necklace for you. Don't want to promise my girl stuff I don't really do. He squeezed Hannah's shoulder. By the way, love the hair down. It's awesome. Hannah's heart was going so fast she didn't think she'd be able to talk. But she heard herself say, maybe next time we hug you can play with it. Deal, Brad said. See you in a few. He turned and walked away. Hannah closed the dressing room door, but she didn't get changed right away. Instead, she sat there hugging herself, annoyed that she was so freaked out when there was no reason to be. Cool. Okay, so that was chapter 19, and I just want to take a second to go through the chat because I couldn't really look at it while I was reading. I kind of tried to. I lost my place a couple of times because I was just trying to see what everyone was saying, and then I was like, where am I? So let me do that now. Yes, my cat definitely was photobombing. He was showing his support. That's Ernie, my mascot, so... And cool, yes, Rachel, we're definitely kindred spirits with the books. These are actually a combination of books that were mine and books that were my sister, whose name is also Rachel. So it's really cool that you noticed the books. And yes. Awesome. I'm just gonna, and Catherine, yes, definitely. I'm glad that you felt that I nailed the process of healing. I've done therapy work as well. My degree is in social work and clinical social work, so that was awesome. That it impacted you that way, and that's definitely what I'm going for. Cool. And yay, I'm glad that you ordered a coffee for yourself and to read with your daughter, Rachel, because that's definitely also what I'm going for. Is I wanted to write something that parents could read with their kids. I think it's young adult, but it's also something that adults enjoy, and I think it's also something that parents can read, kids can read, and they can discuss it. So cool. So what I want to do is I do want to do a Q&A. So I want to invite everybody to put their questions in the chat so that I can kind of direct the conversation, because I could just talk about whatever pops into my head related to the book, but I think that'll be cool. That'll be cool. And yeah, I'm glad to see that people related to it, that people felt that connected to it, because that's definitely what I'm going for. Just wondering if anybody has any specific questions that they'd like me to address. I'll wait a minute to see if anyone does, and if not, I'll just talk a little bit more about the book. Or also, I think I also would love to share some comments. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so Rachel asked, did your experience as a social worker give you the idea to write this book? That was part of it. As a clinical social worker, I mostly worked with people who had criminal justice background. I worked in an organization that did pretrial release as an alternative to bail. So that, and I heard a lot of stories about a lot of different things. Some people did have sexual assault history. Some people did have issues with peer pressure and with with identity and that kind of thing. And there were so many connected issues. So that definitely was part of it. And plus also I also in addition to my own experience and experiences of people that I knew in person. So that was a great question. So thank you for that. Okay, so and Katiko asked similarly what inspired me to write this book. And like I said, some of it was based on my social work experience, some of it was based on people I knew, some of it was based on my own experience. I'm fortunate that I've never been raped, as Hannah is in the book, but when I was in high school, I used to not go to my locker because this was long, long before I transitioned, and there were some boys that used to touch my chest, and it would bother me. And one time I told the teacher, and the teacher talked to one of the boys, and the boy said, "Oh, that was an accident. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry," and then proceeded to keep doing it. So, um, that's a memory that I gave to another character that appears later in the book, but that was also part of what inspired me. Um, and I also was inspired by the fact that I work as a TV reviewer as well. I write TV reviews for TV Fanatic, and so often TV does not get it right. And so often TV either glamorizes rape and sexual assault, glosses it over, um, definitely doesn't take it seriously, and that's one of my pet peeves. So I wanted to write something that would be serious, or and that would be and that would impact people and actually address the issues. Okay, so is there a sequel brewing? I have a couple of books in mind. Originally, I was going to write a sequel about Hannah's friend Sierra, um, who I don't want to give away any spoilers, but let me just say she has a story of her own. And so I originally wanted to do that, and that's something that's kind of on the back burner right now because I ended up with two other project ideas. And one of those ideas was actually a kind of a rewrite of a book I'd written a while ago. Before I transitioned, I'd written a book called Shades of Gay, which was about a boy who is coming out during his senior year and trying to deal with the changes that causes in his life on top of figuring out about college. And so I had a while ago decided I want to rewrite that as Now or Never. And it was actually set in the same fictional Long Island town that Reinventing Hannah is. And so recently I was thinking about how to rewrite that book and how to kind of change the story because I didn't want to write the same story all over again. And I realized that Arthur had a friend named Emily, and Brad had an older sister named Emily. So I decided to set it in the same universe, make Emily into that same character that's Brad's sister, and set it 2 years before Reinventing Hannah. And it's basically about Emily uh, trying to move past the fact that she is very infatuated with Arthur, who can't return her feelings because he's gay. And so that's something I'm working on. Another idea that I also want to work on is set in the same universe, but not exactly a sequel because it's also set in Cedarwood, and it's about a girl who is undiagnosed but on the autistic spectrum and who has moved there to that town after the death of her father. And I really, in that particular book, I want to go into all sorts of issues related to her autism, related to the fact that her mother is a single mother and that they don't have as much money as other people, and she's also African American, and I do want to address some of the racial issues that will be in that book. So that's a long answer, but there's a couple of different projects. Um, so were any of the characters based on certain people? Well, for one thing, like I said, Hannah is who I would have been if I wasn't transgender. So in that sense, she was based a lot on me because the way she was originally is similar to the way I was as a teenager. I didn't have the group of friends that she had. I was very shy, and I didn't really have any friends who were in my school. I mostly had friends online. It was when online stuff was beginning to be popular, so I knew people in other states, but I didn't have friends there. And Brad was partially based on this guy that I liked when I was in high school, who I didn't have the courage to pursue. Um, and also, if you watch Days of Our Lives, then you probably will pick up on some references that I have in there. In some ways, Hannah and Brad also remind me of JJ and Paige, who are my favorite couple on Days of Our Lives, and for who the writing was not great on the show. And I write Days of Our Lives fan fiction as well. And that was actually part of where I got this idea from, because I was writing a story about Paige, and I started thinking about what I would want to do in a more serious book. So there was that. I'm trying to think about some of the other characters. Um, it's sometimes hard to tell because I feel like a lot of my characters are composites of different experiences, different people, different things that I've experienced in life. But yeah, there's definitely some of that. Cool. What things help me complete my book from start to finish, and what do I recommend to other people? I'm actually going to share my screen to answer this question, but first I'm going to answer it. But then I want to show you what I've done in Trello, which is a system that I use to help me plan my book. I'm what's called a pantser, which means that I don't like to outline. I try to outline, but my brain does not really work that way. So when I was writing my first draft, it was very difficult to outline. Like, I would start writing an outline in Evernote, and then I'd get bored, and then I would write, and then sometimes I would know what was happening next, and other times I wouldn't. So that was challenging. And what helped me complete it was first just writing that first draft. The first draft was just like, write whatever comes to mind. Don't worry about if it's really coming together yet or not coming together. And so I did that during, excuse me for a second. I did that during National November Writers Month, which is a month-long project where people try to complete 50,000 words in 1 month. And that really helped me get on schedule with like getting up, writing first thing before I do anything else, and then being ready to write the next day. So that was helpful. The other thing that was helpful was after the first draft, I actually wrote several more drafts before I had the story. And so I spent a lot of time trying to improve my vision of the story, thinking more about the characters, thinking about where I wanted to go, thinking about what was missing from the story. And eventually I used Trello, and so I also want to show you a little bit of my Trello board. I'm not going to show you the whole board because I have the whole story mapped out on there, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but here we go. Okay, so as you can see, with this, what I did was and I'm just gonna give this a minute till it needs to refresh, but which happens sometimes, and I apologize for that. Sometimes my computer can be a little slow, but I'll keep talking while we're waiting for it to load. Trello is basically a storyboarded kind of thing. People use it for all sorts of things. You can use it like as a checklist kind of thing. You can use it to keep track of your goals for the week, to keep track of your finances. And so one of the things I use it for is writing. And with Reinventing Hannah, what I did was I made a list after I had written the first draft and I was ready to revise. I went through it and I made a list of what all the different plot lines were. So you can see this is my main plot, this is one of my subplots, and so forth. And I color coded them. And then I made cards for each scene. And this was a little time consuming because I had to really read each scene carefully. And I made a description of each scene, and then at some point, I'm I don't know if I did it on all of them. Okay, so yeah, so on this I just added. That's what I was trying to do. This was what I wanted to show you guys. So okay, fine. We won't do that one since it keeps. So like on each one, I would add. So as I read it, I would make a little description, and then I would make a little who's in the scene. Why is this scene important? And so by doing that, that really helped me see it more clearly. And there were some scenes that I changed, moved around. You can, like drag these to move them around. I'm not really going to, but if I wanted to, I could put that under there. Color coded them by the plot and all of that kind of stuff, which I really don't like that much beforehand. I like to do that afterwards as I'm revising, and then I reread it little by little, and I worked on those things. Another thing I did was I worked on the voice. I made sure that the voice was consistent throughout, changed any scenes where the voice didn't sound right. So I just kind of worked on one thing at a time with that. So let me come back to me. And yeah, so that really helped me because it helped me make things really clear. I definitely recommend starting with your idea. After during the first draft, just write it as fast as you can. Just put it on the paper. I like to tell people that you cannot edit a blank page, so just put something down, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's something you're going to delete later. And then after the first draft, use Trello to try to organize things, go through the book several times. And then definitely you want to use beta readers, which are people who are going to read your book and give you some encouragement and also tell you what worked and what didn't. And I think that's an important step. Hire an editor. My friend Jess edited for me, and she did a great job, and her whole goal is to help people be able to afford editing. So I definitely recommend her, definitely recommend doing some sort of editing, and then the formatting and publishing. So in a nutshell, that's definitely what I would recommend as far as that goes. So I hope that answers that question. So I'm just looking to see if there's... Okay, so Catherine was asking if I was planning on promoting this book in treatment centers and clinics that deal with these issues. And that's a great idea, and that's something I definitely want to do. I wrote an email to RAIN the other day, which is the Rape and Incest something. I forgot what it stands for, but anyway, it's one of the biggest support network for people who have suffered sexual assault and related traumas. So I emailed them the other day and asked them if they would be interested in doing some kind of fundraiser where I presented the book and shared the profits from selling it with them. So that's the one idea I had. Definitely, if anyone knows of other organizations that would be good to reach out to or has contacts at organizations, I would really love for you to share those with me, because I think it's important to get the message out to people who have suffered this kind of harassment or violation. So cool. So I'm seeing just pretty much people talking about the things that I've said. So I'm glad to hear that people definitely think that I did this respectfully and sensitively, because that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight. I really appreciate that comment, Allison, because one of the things I think is important is that I didn't want to glamorize rape in any way. Because, there are some people who will read a book that has a rape scene because they want to read the rape scene for other reasons. And I didn't want to do that. So one of the things I did is that I don't show very much of the rape. I show Hannah going to the party, I'd show her getting drugged and being confused. And then I sort of show the beginning and hint at what happens to her, but then we go to the next day when she wakes up not knowing what's going on. And I felt that was important for a couple of reasons. One, like I said, I didn't want to glamorize. And I also felt that would be more within the character, within the point of view, because Hannah doesn't remember what happened to her. So she's out of it during it. So for her to wake up and not know what happened, and for the reader to not know what happened either, kind of helps people take that journey right along with her. So I wanted to make sure to do that. So I do want to see. And yes, definitely, like I said, and I see Tony also said that this is one of his pet peeves with the media as well. I think this is important, and one of the other things that I've seen is that so many, like I said, so many shows tend to just make it like either that the person gets over too quickly, or they're broken forever, or they glamorize it, or there's a million different ways to not do it properly, and I'm hoping that this will be better. Okay, cool. So Katiko was asking, I know a lot of survivors can get triggered sometimes. What recommendations do you have for survivors who might get triggered while reading your book? I actually include, first of all, at the very beginning of the book, I include a author's note. And in the author's note, I let people know that this can be triggering for some survivors and that my intent is to empower. And I let them know that, and I let readers know that it's okay to take this book as slowly as you need to take it. I had one person who commented in a review that it took them a month to read it because they're a survivor, but that they were glad that they did. And, go at your own pace. If you need to take breaks, if you need to put it aside for a while, if you feel it's not for you all at this time, all of that is okay. This book is for you in whatever way that works best for you. And I also put in some phone numbers for hotlines at both the front and the end of the book so that anyone who's feeling triggered can also reach out for more support if they'd like. And hopefully that will be helpful for them. Cool. So yes, definitely. The experience can definitely surface later, and it can take years. And I think that's something, I wasn't really able to go into that a lot in this particular book because within the time frame, I needed to show her as a teenager dealing with it. So for her, it does not take years, but it is true that for some people it does. For some people, it can it can take a long time. And I think that's a really important point, and that's hopefully something that I can deal with more in the future. I do at some point also want to write a sequel about the legal process and what happens when the boy who was responsible for this goes on trial for it, that kind of thing. And that may be something that I can address then as well, because I think that it's really important to show that it's not something that goes away. It's not something that you get over quickly. So, I think that's important. And yes, therapy is definitely a great thing that's going to be really supportive. And that's something I also tried to show in the book as well, because I wanted to show the whole experience. And Hannah does have a counselor who someone had asked earlier if any of the characters are based on particular people. I named the counselor Olivia, and anyone who watches Law and Order SVU might have an inkling as to why, because on SVU, the lead character is Olivia Benson, who is like this idealized sexual assault detective who's really more of a social worker. And so I named the therapist after her for that reason. I definitely, obviously I was trained as a clinical social worker, so I think it's important. to show counseling is a good thing, and that's another issue that I also have with the media is how they deal with mental illness. So many times, mental illness is either shown as a joke or as the person getting super violent, or as something to be feared, and mental health is not taken seriously, and mental health practitioners certainly aren't. So I wanted to change that as well. So cool. So yeah, so that's something I go through in this book as well. Hannah's mother is bipolar, and I also do have a very short sequel that's also available on Amazon called Mama's Illness, in which is about when Hannah was 6, and her mom was in a mental hospital for a little while, and how she had a hard time because her grandmother wasn't telling her what was going on. So I wrote that as backstory, and Um, I also wrote that as part of an experiment on Twitter. There's this thing called VSS365 where every day somebody gives a word of the day, and you're supposed to write a tiny little tweet, which is a very short story using that word. So I did a continuing story which turned into Mama's Illness. So that was also exciting as well. Yes. Don't. Yeah, I agree. Tony, don't get started on the media for Trey's mental illness. I Yeah, we've had lots of conversations about that, and the that's one of my pet peeves, especially because as a person with autism, it really annoys me that every time there's one of these mass shootings or violent events, the first thing that I see is maybe the person had Asperger's. And that just like irks me so much because I'm like, no, I have Asperger's and that's not the way it works. So, yeah, that's definitely something that I want to rectify. Um, so does anyone else have any other questions? If I just want to see if there's anything else that anyone would like to discuss before the last thing that I want to do is I do want to give away a free copy of the ebook and a free copy of the paperback book to somebody here. Rachel, I know, bought the book already. But what I would invite everyone to do is if you want to, trauma does definitely create illness. I agree. Uh, yeah, so I definitely think that that's something that's important to address as well because there's underlying trauma among so many people, and it's not addressed. And a lot of times the root causes of things are not addressed. And Kimberly says, I love how this book sparks discussion. I think it might be something a school counselor could use with a group of students. Definitely. And that's something I want to look into also. I'm not really sure yet how to go about it, but if anybody has any contacts, please let me know because I definitely want to reach out to teachers, to schools, to school counselors, and see if any of them are interested in using it in any of their programming. And I think that's definitely important. Am I going to start a book club? Um, I think that's a really great idea. And it is something that I want to do at some point. I was thinking about having one online, maybe on Facebook, and it could be something where we have discussions like this. We have discussion questions on every chapter or whatever. So that's something that I think is a great idea. I think it's important, and I definitely want to do that. Um, yeah, call the schools. Yeah. Well, assuming the schools. That's the other thing is once the schools are actually open, that'll help with the schools as well. Yeah. So like I said, the last thing I want to do before we end for the night is I do want to do a raffle. So if you're interested in participating in the raffle, please type something, say yes or say something to let me know you want to participate in the raffle, and then I'm going to choose somebody at random. Okay, so I have. Okay, so Kimberly also already purchased the book. That's great, Kimberly, that you already purchased it. So that's great. I hope you enjoyed it. And that does remind me, after a raffle, I would just want to share where people can leave reviews if they've read it and where they can buy it if they haven't read it. Okay, so I'm just gonna choose some people at random. Okay, so what I did is, since three interested in the raffle, I had a program choose a random number between 1 and 3, and the number that it gave me is 2. So that's Catherine. Catherine, if you PM me your address, I can send you a copy of the book. And I also want to just thank everybody for their support. And it helps me to see how many people are excited about this book and how many people are willing to help and want to support and want to keep buying the book, want to keep sharing about the book, and that's great. So that makes me feel really good. So the last thing I just want to do, yes, and Catherine was saying also, it would be an excellent movie. I agree. That's something that I want to do at some point, is have a movie version. And one of the things that is really cool is to be able to do like a web series. I might do a web series about all the people in Cedarwood at some point. So you're welcome, Catherine. I'm really excited for you as well. I just want to share how people can buy the book and how people can review the book. So I'm just going to share a couple of things. If you look at the description on Facebook or wherever you're watching from, you should be able to see all the links that I'm going to share, but I'm also going to share my screen. So where is it? Okay, so I was just taking a minute to share. Um, for those of you who have not purchased the book yet, as you can see, the page for Reinventing Hannah. And I know, like, I've talked with many people about some of the issues with Amazon workers, but unfortunately, right now, it's very difficult to not use Amazon. I was finding that no one's buying it anyplace else, and in order to be in Kindle Unlimited, which I'm in, you have to be exclusive to Amazon. So for at least the foreseeable future, that's where it is right now. But anyway, you can purchase it for Kindle. If you're in Kindle Unlimited, you can get it for free as part of your subscription, and I get paid for that as well, which is cool. Or you can purchase it in paperback if you'd like. And you also can put your review right there. As you can see, I have some editorial reviews. I have some customer reviews here. And this is very important to me because if you if people come across the book and they're not sure, they a lot of times they like to look at reviews. They like to read the reviews and see what people are saying. And so it's helpful to other customers if people who read the book post a review, especially on Amazon for other customers. The way you do that, you go right here where it says write a customer review and you just click there. So that's one option. So I want to show you, I also want to show you a couple of other options. I also want to show you a couple of other things. This is, where is it? This is what happens when I have too many tabs open. But this is my Goodreads page. I'll show you next, and I'll also show you Readsy. Goodreads, a lot of us are familiar with, some people may not be, is a site where people, it's basically social media for readers, where you can share what books you're reading, you can review them, and so on and so forth. So, this is this is the Goodreads page for Reinventing Hannah. And you can click through if you want to buy it. You can rate it. You can put as much as you want. You can write a review as well. So you pretty much, the way you would do that is you would click on rate this book. Then when you do that, it'll give you, I believe, of a review. So yeah, so definitely you can do that as well. And I just want to show you one more site, and then I'll look at the chat one last time before we say goodnight. And the third site that I'm going to show you is called Readsy Discovery. This is a site that is free for readers. As an author, I paid for it in order to be listed on the site. And you can upvote it. So if you like the book, you can click here to vote. You can write a review. The way you write a review on this site is you click where it says reader reviews. Right now, I think I have one review. I think Allison wrote a review on Readsy. So you see right there it says review this book, and you can write a review there. So that's the third option. So those are all places where you can leave reviews. Those are all places where you can also click through to purchase if you'd like. So I just want to thank everybody again. Thank you all for your support. Yes, Goodreads definitely is a great way to review too. Thank you for reading. Thank you for being here. I'm super grateful. And I definitely will be writing more books that hopefully will impact people as well as this one does. Hopefully this will impact all of you the way that yes, Helene, yes, Readsy. It should be in the description, but I'll put it in the chat. I'll put the names in the chat, and the links are already in the description. So and whoops, that's not what I wanted to highlight. This is what I wanted to highlight. And thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you, everybody, for your support. I'm glad you all enjoyed it, and I hope that everybody has a great and Just give me one second here. I hope everybody has a great night. I want to thank you again for coming. And if anybody has anything else, you can always reach me on Facebook, Twitter, I'm also on Instagram. I'm going to be posting the replay of this video on all of those places. So thank you all for coming. And I hope that everybody has a great night.